So Prime Minister Modi embarking on this first ever visit by an Indian Prime Minister to Israel. Many are calling this already historic even before he embarked on that flight. But there have been some political observations that have been raised. Some parties have outright raised objections. The Congress party, while overall welcoming the visit, has expressed some amount of concern on what kind of implications this could have on India's ties with the Palestinians. Joining us now is a senior member of parliament of the Congress party from Thiruvananthapuram and more importantly, I guess in the context of this interview, the chairman of the Parliamentary Committee on External Affairs, Dr. Shashi Tharoor. Welcome to CNN News 18. If you can set the record straight first for our viewers, what is the official stand of the Congress party as far as Mr. Modi's trip to Israel is concerned? I know you also gave a statement a short while ago where you've overall welcomed it, but you do have some concerns about what this might mean for India's ties and traditional loyalties with the Palestinians. Could you explain, please?
No, I think as far as we're concerned, the relationship with Israel should stand on its own feet. It's an important relationship. The Congress government recognized Israel upon its independence. The Congress government upgraded relations with Israel to the ambassadorial level in 1992. And the Congress government, or the UPA government, I should really say, was able to maintain a very good relationship with Israel on a whole host of fronts. So we have no difficulty in saying that we have good relations with Israel. And indeed, going beyond that, we should be grateful to Israel for having offered us invaluable cooperation on areas of security and defense. And I think that's extremely important. In addition to which, there's a whole host of activities, agriculture, drip irrigation, animal husbandry, diamonds, and of course IT and startups, which have been growing, and the momentum has carried us to the point where the Prime Minister has gone there. But at the same time, India was careful never to resile from its traditional policy of support for a just solution to the Palestinian problem. The Palestinians have been deprived of a homeland. There are a number of UN resolutions India has supported which call for two states living side by side in peace and prosperity behind secure and defensible borders. That doesn't exist right now. There is no peace process. And I don't think that India in any way should back off from its commitment to justice to the Palestinians.
No, but
it's striking, however, that
just an
it's striking that the Prime Minister is not going to the Palestinian territories. He's only going to Israel. But he did receive the Palestinian President, Mahmoud Abbas, in India just a couple of months ago. So maybe, I'm saying maybe, I don't know officially, but maybe the MEA has done the right thing in taking account of Arab sensitivities in advance and briefing them in advance that this visit is not in any way directed against Arab and Palestinian.
But on a larger policy question, why are you apprehensive that just because Mr. Modi goes to Israel standalone and does not visit Ramallah, how does that change India's traditional position on the Palestinian cause or India's support for a peaceful resolution of the dispute there through the two-state theory? I mean, we haven't changed our position in any way.
That's right. So what I'm saying is, as long as we don't change our position, as long as we don't signal through this decision something else, we are okay with it. The important thing is that the MEA and the government of India must attend to the understandable sensitivities of the states in the region and particularly of the Palestinian leadership, and I'm assuming they have done so. It would be an elementary mistake if they haven't. But if they have done so, and if it's very careful that in our signaling we don't in any way signal unwittingly or otherwise a diminution of our support, our traditional position for a just solution for Palestine, then it seems to me if it's adroitly handled, there's no problem.
No, don't you feel that since the Prime Minister's already gone, I mean, he's been to Iran, he's been to Saudi Arabia, he's gone to the UAE, those countries can't now turn around and say that, you know, you're pursuing your relationship with Israel at the expense of your relationship with the Arab world?
I didn't say they could. I mean, I don't think the issue right now is not that we are in any way, I think had the Prime Minister gone to Israel first and not to those countries, such a criticism could have been voiced.
Yeah.
But I think he's covered his bases. The government of India has made sure that we have shored up our relationships in the Arab world first. In addition to what you said, we've had Arab leaders coming as chief guests on Republic Day. And as I reminded you earlier, the President of Palestine has been here just a couple of months ago. So I think in principle we have played it the right way. and I'm certainly quite supportive of our professional approach in this manner. During this visit, it's important that the signal doesn't in any way go out that would undermine this kind of careful preparatory work that seems to have taken place before.
Dr. Tharoor, you've been a career diplomat, and no bilateral visit is without its own domestic implications and the message that's being sent back home. Some politicians, the likes of Asad Owaisi, for example, and I know you don't agree with him on many things, have raised objection to the fact that this could send out a negative message to Indian Muslims. I want to pick your brains on that.
Well, I think it's part of the government's duty to reassure domestic opinion as well as international opinion as to what they intend. I mean, I think that certainly some parties are more sensitive to such things than others. The BJP has not traditionally reached out very much to the Muslim community in this country. They've had no Muslim MP in the Lok Sabha. They've had no Muslim candidates in the UP elections. So many in the BJP don't seem to care what Muslims think, and that would be a mistake. I think it is important to explain and educate the public that, look, Israel is a country that gives us a number of things that no other country does, particularly when it comes to defense technology and so on. So we have a wide-ranging relationship that is part of the mature relationship we have, that we can go there without hyphenating it with anything else. And having conveyed such a message in a very sensible way, it might be able to pacify these fears. So to that degree, it is the government that must give Mr. Owaisi an answer, not me.
Okay. In terms of how this is going to be, obviously a lot of other global capitals are going to watch this visit very closely. How may this visit be viewed most notably in A, Islamabad, and B, also in Beijing?
Well, I mean, I think every country certainly has its own policy attitudes when it comes to Israel. The Chinese have a very close and growing relationship with Israel, so I don't think that they can certainly have any criticism to express. As for Pakistan, of course, they are officially quite hostile to Israel, but I still remember at the UN Mr. Musharraf's handshake with Mr. Sharon. These are things that they will do because they also feel that no one can afford permanent enemies. So as far as I'm concerned, I wouldn't worry too much about a third country's reaction, other than those countries that feel directly affected by our relationship with Israel, and Palestine is the foremost amongst them, as well as the other neighboring countries of Israel like Jordan and so on. I'm hoping that our government has done their homework, has contacted Jordan, contacted Egypt, which are both countries with peace relationships with Israel and ambassadors in Israel, and just told them, look, I hope you don't misunderstand. We are dehyphenating this. Every Indian leader that went to Israel, even cabinet ministers, even the likes of me as an ordinary MP, when I went to Israel, I also crossed over to Ramallah and saw the Palestinian side. This time, very clearly, the Prime Minister sending a signal that India's relationship with Israel stands on its own feet. As I said, I have no problem with that, provided the signaling around it is adroitly managed.
So do you reckon that by the end of this visit, the relationship would have been well and truly dehyphenated?
I think it could be to a great extent, because there is a bit of a gap between the visit of the Palestine president and, of course, India's visit to Israel, the Prime Minister's visit to Israel. His speech there has focused entirely, so far what he said has focused entirely on the bilateral relationship. As far as I'm aware, he's made no comment yet about India's somewhat different views on the treatment of the Palestinians, on the occupied territories, and on some of the UN resolutions. I'll be curious as to whether he raises those either privately or publicly with the Israelis, or whether he prefers to keep this purely on the positive sunlit uplands of India-Israel relations. These are choices only the Prime Minister and his close advisors can make. I do believe that at the end of the day, the relationship is important in its own right, and there's no point going there and upsetting your hosts, but at the same point, if you go there and end up affecting other relationships that are also important to you, then it is India that will pay the price. So it involves a certain amount of tightrope walking, and I hope the tightrope is walked very carefully.
I'm going to wrap it up from where I began, and whether the Congress party, your party, has lost out on yet another opportunity to claim credit. I mean, Mr. Modi going to Israel on a standalone visit has come on the back of years of work, started, of course, by P.V. Narasimha Rao, who is a Congress Prime Minister. He's the one who was instrumental in getting full and ambassadorial diplomatic ties with Israel. Again, on an issue where the Congress Party and Congress Prime Ministers have had a role in turning India's traditional foreign policy, it seems like the Congress Party wants to now not want to take credit for it.
No, on the contrary, in answering your first question, I gave you precisely this history, that it was the Congress government that had upgraded the relationship, that governments of all parties have continued the momentum of the relationship. During our time, we've seen cabinet ministers and state government ministers and chief ministers traveling to Israel. There's an ongoing momentum. These things don't happen overnight. It's been built up over time, and certainly the Congress Party should have every right to take credit for having started us on this course. In fact, Prime Minister Narasimha Rao famously said to Yasser Arafat, look, I need to have ambassadorial level relations with Israel if I'm going to be useful to the Palestinian cause in Israel. And Arafat totally endorsed that, both privately and publicly, on his visit. So I think that the Congress Party has had, on the one hand, an unwavering commitment to justice for Palestine, but on the other hand, a very carefully managed, and I would say successfully managed, opening and strengthening of the relationship with Israel. Undoubtedly, there are domestic sensitivities here in India which are more felt by the Congress Party than by the BJP for obvious reasons. But that doesn't mean that the basic policy is in any way something the Congress is walking away from. We have valued that relationship with Israel, and we hope the Prime Minister handles it well, or continues to handle it well.
Okay. There's a fascinating story of how J.N. Dixit managed to convince some of the more recalcitrant Arab ambassadors, when this decision was made in 1992, to upgrade our relationship to full ambassadorial status. But that's a story for another time. Thank you very much, though, Dr. Tharoor, for speaking with us.
Thank you, Zach.
Here on CNN News 18.